2 days ago, there was a ruling, a judgment rather, on the outcome of the election. It's important to know that, while it falls just short of the 100 days, we want to bring it in to have that discussion today, while we also look at what the pressure of going to court, having a case in court, and fighting for the legitimacy of your government, what it does to governance. How has the government of President Tinubu managed this process? How has the government seen this process through? Are there highs? Are there lows? What are the lessons that we can learn from this? How have we performed? And also, moving on, what is there to be done to our constitution or to the Electoral Act? Because it feels like there's still a lot of loopholes there. It feels like, a lot of comments about the 25%, that's the constitution, and the issues with the transmission, transfer, conveying, or whatever, whichever term is used. All that is still there for clarity. It's still things that we need to discuss. So we'll be getting into that conversation today. But before I introduce my guest, of course, I have in the studio with me, award-winning journalist, Mr. Adeniyi Kunnu.
Yeah.
Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Kayode. It's a privilege to be here this morning again. Sincerely, is there any time as apt as now to talk about 100 days in office? Maybe no time in the future, because as you rightly said, it's about 100 days in office, and we're here to dig it in. It promises to be an interesting one, and we just keep going forward, because that is what we do when we come here. And let me say thank you to the Almighty God also for the privilege of life that I have today. I'm most grateful to be witnessing another day in the life of the world.
All right. And having said that, we go to Badon right now. We're being joined by a professor of comparative politics at the Department of Political Science at the Afe Babalola University at Ekiti, but I think it might be in Ibadan. Joining us from Ibadan today, we will be having that discussion with him in a short while. We just lost that connection with him. He will join us back pretty shortly. And once he does, we get into that conversation with him. Meanwhile, right now, we can go ahead with the papers.
Yes, let me just say that I have the Punch here with me. The Guardian looks ready. The Nation, as well as the Vanguard. Okay, the Vanguard newspaper. Let's say this, that we hear a recent announcement of the release, as it were, of the verdict of the tribunal. And whilst many persons have been reacting to the outcome of the election, of the verdict, or the outcome of the appeal, or the outcome of the petitions, many other things are happening now, which is that the APC appears to be in a seemingly advantageous position to be able to actually speak about the development so far. Now, the tribunal judgment is actually written in red on the front page of the Punch newspaper, and it reads, APC lampoons Atiku, Obi opposition attacks INEC, judgment devoid of justice, says XVP, Obi opposition plan beavers hacking, APC insists. Petitioners, legal teams storm Court of Appeal for judgment, certified true copy. That is actually what is going on here. We go ahead to look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper has certain things to tell us. Endless wait for palliatives in state amid accountability deficits. That is away from it. But of course, we also have the story about the reactions to the petitions, to the petitions court. Particularly what has happened. Ruling head for Supreme Court. Nigeria needs prayers to end insecurity, says Defense Minister. Lagos Assembly rejects 2 commissioners' nominees, confirms 15 others. I'm happy that there's a headway, because without commissioners, it is very unarguable that the state governor cannot function as it should. Troops kill 814 terrorists, arrest 1,903 in 3 months. We've been discussing that really. Before that time, we've been discussing the aspect of security, which we did extensively yesterday, And this, of course, is indicative of what was discussed by our guest who was with us yesterday. Then let the hammer fall on same-sex unions. That's the editorial on page 12 of The Guardian. I'm going to read that so that we understand. I was in a conversation with somebody who is actually a mother of 3 and lives in Canada. And she told me lots of things that perhaps are not just in order if we allow same-sex relationship to thrive. She's not someone you describe as maybe a very conservative Christian, but she spoke from the angle of what it does to family, what it does to life, and all of that. For those of you who want to join me, of course, I am on Facebook Live. You can all just get in there. Let's do this together. The Nation newspaper is the next article. Obi, why we are challenging tribunal verdict. Don't go to Supreme Court. Bello, Wike, Bruce urge PDP Labour Party candidate. APC, judgment reinforces democracy, judiciary's vibrancy. That judgment is not is not coterminous with justice. Obi speaking. The decision of the court falls far short of my expectation. Atiku speaking. The outcome remains a wholesale endorsement of our party's vision. APC speaking. The Vanguard is here. Election tribunal judgment. Mixed reaction as Atiku Obi head to Supreme Court. Crude oil theft. Nigeria lost 16.25 trillion naira in 11 years. Rep speaker speaking. But when they say they lost 16.25 trillion, nobody has gone to jail, Kaide. You lose 16.25 trillion, but nobody is said to have actually, nobody is accountable for it.
And it's not a case of force majeure.
Oh God, in fact, my English no good again for that matter. Because you cannot lose 16.25 trillion. Don't forget.
And you're sitting comfortably
for 11 years. Nobody is arrested. Nobody is accountable. Nobody has a name. The crude oil just disappeared. Kaide, let me tell you, sir, 3 weeks ago, the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuru Hibadu, mentioned to us that the country loses about 400,000 barrels a day, and that translates to $3 million US. So we are talking about the country that loses, knows that it loses something, but the country cannot actually account for it because the country itself perhaps appears complicit in this particular theft and crude disappearances. 30 killed in Abuja landslide, 19 kidnapped. Lagos Assembly clears a Motosho, 14 others. Motosho is the commissioner for information in Lagos. Food insecurity widespread nationwide as Lagos, Borno, 3 others top chart. When they talk about food insecurity in Lagos, you know, Kaide, we are quick to look the other way. But the truth is, there is actually food insecurity around us. So it is key for us to understand this particular development. Kaide, you want to say something over there?
Well, the food insecurity, it might be, like you said, it might be more obvious than we, more pressing than we think.
Particularly the supply to this
supply of it, because the food insecurity is not just about the availability; it's the ability to even purchase them.
That is another. That's true.
Yeah,
that's
the ability,
true.
because
so
a lot of places in Lagos now, the cost of food has gone up because they feel the people in those areas are high-end earners, and even those people are just managing life. They can't afford. They can't live the kind of life. A lot of people don't eat plantain like they used to anymore. Yeah. They don't eat so many food stuff.
Of those designers on the main meal.
You know. Yeah. But I guess it's back on. So fantastic. Let's wrap up with that.
Okay, then, there's something about passengers stranded as foreign airlines delay and cancel flights and MMIA. I saw that from the other side yesterday. When we talk about cancellation of flights, quite a number of reasons associated with it. From this particular paper, when we talk about cancellation of flight, they're talking about thousands of international passengers who got stranded in Lagos, Egypt, Doha, London, Amsterdam, Paris, and other top destinations after baggage belt failures at the new terminal of the Murtala. Yes, sir. Baggage belt failures at the new terminal of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, forced airlines to delay and cancel flights. Kaide, accountability is what we're talking about. Crude oil disappears, no name. Now, crude oil disappears, no name. Now you have, as we speak, something happening here.
nobody will be held
belt
responsible.
is not functioning.
New terminal.
All right. China, okay. So Kayode, go ahead, sir.
Let's welcome our guest this morning. Is joining us virtually all the way from Ibadan, Professor Ademola Azeez.
Yeah.
He is a professor of Comparative Politics at the Afe Babalola University. Good morning, Prof. How are you doing, sir? Hello, Prof. Good morning to you. Okay.
That's what you mean.
Great. Good morning. Good to have you join us this morning.
Yeah.
All right, and
it's a pleasure.
Okay, great. We have you joined right now, and we're having a discussion around the elections. First of all, this week we're celebrating, we're marking 100 days of the president in office, trying to find out how effective, how efficient, how impactful it has been, or otherwise.
The past 100 days.
Yeah, the past 100 days, and by virtue of the events that happened 2 days ago, we also realized that it's important that we speak about this. So that is what we are doing. But as we get the program started, we'd just like you to take a listen to this clip, some events that happened from yesterday, some activities that happened. That is, more importantly, as it concerns the declaration of the petitions court, and the reaction by the people concerned. Let's take a listen to this.
PEPC finally delivered its long-awaited judgments on petitions challenging the outcome of the presidential election held on 25th of February 2023. This judgment was delivered within the statutory time frame under the extant status. We acknowledge the court's contributions to due process and seeming attempt to strengthen our democracy. As petitioners in this case, we respect the views and ruling of the court, but we disagree with the court's reasoning and conclusions in the judgment it delivered. It is my intention as the presidential candidate and the intention of Labour Party to challenge this judgment by way of appeal immediately as allowed by the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria. The PEPC has rendered its judgment, but that esteemed body is not the final arbiter. The responsibility now falls on the Supreme Court. I do know that the judgment is not conterminous with justice. I implore Nigerians to remain focused, steadfast, and peaceful, and to abide by the rule of law and understand this matter has not reached its logical conclusion. Our legal team has already received our firm instruction to file an appeal against the decision. I shall not relent in quest for justice, not necessarily for myself, but for our teeming supporters all over Nigeria, whose mandate to us at the post was regrettably truncated by INEC. The strength and value of our democracy reside on solid national institutions and our confidence in them. Electoral litigations will almost be unnecessary and non-existent if the Independent National Electoral Commission discharges its statutory functions creditably, transparently, and with tenable fairness. When that body fails, as it did recently, those subverting the will of Nigerian voters, the recourse to judiciary becomes imperative, as is now the case.
Kayode, when you are planning to go to court, there's something that I want to say here. When you talk about subverting the will of the people, I think that in all of what petitioner Peter Obi has said, I think I take exception to the use of subverting the will of the people. When leaders speak, they are expected to be circumspect. And I feel that Peter Obi, in all of his reactions or whatever he has read, didn't get it right with that line. Because there's an impression given already. When you're talking about a decision of a competent court of jurisdiction not in your favor, you don't present the court as your enemy. You present the court as one that you seek justice from. And I think that those lines are lines that he perhaps would review and withdraw
in future,
because they really don't give the right impression, sir.
But what I even find interesting in this, and I'm going to bring the professor in on this now. What I find interesting is that it's not good to be the weakest link, because you realize that when former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and the candidate of the Labour Party Peter Obi were speaking, they all, you could hear in their tone that they hold the justice, the judiciary in high esteem.
Yes.
Talking about how they know they still believe in the system and they want to go ahead because they believe they can get justice, and now is the last resort for the human and all that. But whenever they spoke about INEC, they actually denigrated INEC, saying INEC didn't perform well. INEC didn't. So I'm wondering, is it fear of the judiciary, or is that really what they think about the judiciary?
I think also that we must understand that institutions are led by human beings, but the offices must not be denigrated. More or less like disregarding the powers that enable presidents preside over the administration of nations. So denigrating the body itself is a disrespect to the country. Right. And that is why leaders must enable or endeavor to choose their words carefully, when they are not happy. Yes, sir.
Prof, thank you for joining us. I've kindly set your mic so we could hear you clearly now. Kindly unmute yourself there so that Nigerians can hear you. Yes,
okay,
great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. The 100 days gone. Before we even get into the justice system and the legal tussle that is going on, what is your view of the first 100 days of the president? Governance, economy, sports, everything across board. All right. Now,
thank you so much. In the last 100 days of... hello?
Yeah, go ahead, please. Can hear you now. Go ahead.
Well, in the last 100 days of the current government, we have been able to development. Like I always say, development is not an handout. It's a planned process. You don't get it immediately because you have to dig deep into the ground to plant whatever seed you're going to get later. If you're going to get a tree, you don't get a tree by just wishing to get a tree. You have to plant to get a tree, and it takes time to germinate. It takes time to grow. So what we have been able to see is what has eluded us over time. What our former leaders have been to do for us, because if they have been able to plant those trees by today, we'll be reaping from the fruit handout. Most Nigerians want giving them things that will not last, that is not sustainable, is almost sacrosanct. But unfortunately for Nigeria today, right from the onset, like the president said, he will set the ground running. We saw some of the activities of the government that is moving us towards very right planning that will eventually lead to growth and development that we're looking for.
All right, so it's a
total deviation from the past.
Okay. So you're saying tough decisions, but taking us in the right direction. All right. Now beyond that governance and the economy and what about other areas like security and every other thing? Attention, communication with the people, interaction, understanding, the clarity of the policies, policy mismatch, if any, in other areas. How do you see those areas as well?
That will be confusion at the beginning, because we may not actually understand where the government is actually going until we start seeing their plans. What I discovered was we have people who do not actually want to hear anything from the government unless what actually touches them directly. But what I'm seeing from government is a prospect. Insecurity did not start to.
Wow, the network is really doing us in this morning.
Council? Are you guys?
Go ahead now. You are talking about insecurity. You said insecurity did not. Can you take it from there?
Composition of the Security Council, the seriousness shown, and okay, insecurity did not just start one day. We got to the level at which we had today over time. And it's not just we can't just eradicate insecurity by just wishing away insecurity, wishing away banditry, wishing away Boko Haram and everything. But we have seen serious plan in place. The composition of the Security Council, the movement of the security team to.
Wow. Okay.
So these are things that engineer and
wow.
The prospect.
Okay. The network is not in our favor this morning. Yeah, hello. Yeah, you're with us. Can you take all that again? We lost you for about the most of 1 minute or two.
Are you hearing me? Can you hear?
I can hear you now. Go ahead, please.
Yes, you mentioned insecurity.
Yes. Wow. Okay. We'll try to get him back, but I think he was talking a lot about how far we've come and what we are doing as Nigerians and, what the president is doing, rather, and the impact, saying we need to tarry a bit for us to get the kind of feedback.
Okay. Kayode, let me weigh in here while we try to reconnect with Professor Azeez. I've held offices before, and one of the things I do in my early days in those offices, Kayode, is that I first of all attempt an understanding.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
I attempt an understanding of what my predecessor has done. If I come to terms with what my predecessor has done, that enables me to look at the things that align with the vision of my administration. Some of the things I may adopt from my predecessor are things that perhaps fit in, and some may be for the long term. When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was campaigning, he did a lot with trying to communicate with people regarding how they should, in fact, expect him to run his administration. Don't forget, they had mentioned to him that what he mentioned to people when he was campaigning, that he wants to continue the laudable work of President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, I think that in itself is to patronize the person that was his predecessor, because he knew quite well that there were many areas former President Muhammadu Buhari did not actually measure up. But having said that, when you assume new offices, I think that when he read his speech, we have talked about it before and we should talk about it. With every respect to his office, if he wasn't the president, somebody would have said he goofed when he just mentioned subsidy out of the line. So that is in itself a violation of the process that he met when he mentioned the cancellation of subsidy ahead of the June deadline, which was supposed to be July the 1st. So you're talking about an administration that didn't quite start on the right foot, and that has consolidated the wrong footing it had with some of the announcements it made coming into the beginning of its administration. So that is one part. Then the second part for us would now say, you are in already. What are the grounds you've actually trod that didn't actually allow you to impact people positively? Is it then possible for you to now do a review?
All right.
And allow that?
We have a Prof back online with us, and is joining us now still. Prof, can you hear me this morning?
I can hear you.
Great. So let's have that conversation. Let's continue that conversation with you. While you were away, Mr. Kunnu was just giving his views on the president's last 100 days. But Mr. Kunnu, you want to land on that? Then we go to Prof.
Well, I just wanted to say that any new administration must not just begin to run with whatever it is that it has done, that it has prepared before it assumes office. There has to be a proper understanding of what the predecessor has done. Let's look at what happened with the President Goodluck Jonathan administration. He left the confab document that many persons says we could adopt some of those things from it. This administration that assumed office, in my own estimation, did not quite do a proper assessment of what the preceding administration has done. If you look at many of the documents they put together, don't forget one of the most contentious things was about the federalism issue, where a committee came together and they defined and brought a document to that effect. Nothing was done to the findings of that committee regarding what the APC government mentioned. Don't forget the agitations across the country is not unassociated with the issue of federalism, with issue of proper federalism of the country. Then do not also forget that with regard to how those in IDB camps have been treated, there are also reports put together. The army put a report together, having been headed, of course, by the former vice president. Some other groups also put some documents together to look at how IDPs were run and how people were taking advantage of those in IDP camps. This administration didn't do anything about it. So I'm simply saying that when an administration has the privilege of coming into office,
you need to learn
first. We know that it is not possible to take everything the previous administration has put together.
All right.
But there are still areas that you can adopt so that you can fine-tune to fit your own vision and mission.
All right. So, Prof, let's come back to you and get into the conversation from Wednesday. The ruling of the judgment by the PEPT, Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. From your professional view as a political science lecturer, a professor in comparative politics, let's start with comparing this year's tribunal proceedings with that of the 2019. Was it better? What are the lessons, like Mr. Kunnu asked earlier right now, did we learn any lessons from the 2019 proceedings, and did we see any improvement in the way the proceedings for this tribunal was conducted?
Well, thank you so much. By my studies and my discipline, we know the essence of democracy and electoral processes. There's no democracy without election, and the need for political parties to aggregate their interests so that they come over to rule the government by virtue of the machinery of the state that implement policies and all that. So, in the course of selection and election of who will assume position, then there's always this cold here and there, and then the problem of the electoral management body and the rest and all that. So it is nowhere human beings are actually selfish in their interest, and that is the whole essence of interest. Only those who aggregate interest, who come together to aggregate interest, form political parties. So there's nothing anybody does, or there's no declaration that will satisfy somebody who is not winning that election in order to fulfill their aspiration and interest. Now, what we had this year, to me, the tribunal, the issue that went to the tribunal was made very simple and very easy.
How?
Compared to what happened in 2019.
Okay.
Now, this year, we had petitions that are not substantiated at all. That goes beyond many of the petitions are actually outside the role of the INEC, the role of the electoral management body. The nomination of candidates, the drug-related issue, the conviction of the presidential candidate. These are not within the powers of the INEC. If we are going to assess electoral system and we are going to assess INEC, we want to see the performance, the scientific way INEC has performed its duty, and that is in the area of irregularities, overvoting, intimidation of voters, and the rest. Now, unfortunately, what was taken to the petition tribunal were vague, unsubstantiated, lacking in specificity. I get what I'm saying now.
Okay.
So it made the role of the tribunal to be easier than what we had in 2019. It was a straightforward decision, judgment. But though everybody has inalienable rights to approach the court for redress or injustice or whatever, but to me, I don't see any reason why we will not ask. nobody will accept the judgment of the tribunal, because it's a straightforward thing. All the members, it's a unanimous decision of a 5-member panel that they have to uphold the decision of the electoral management body. So it's simpler compared to the previous tribunal we've had in Nigeria.
But while you rightly said that a lot of the prayers were beyond the capacity or the purview of INEC, there were still talks about election rigging, the malpractices that happened. Are those not cogent enough for the judges to look at and sway the judgment in favor of any of the two opposition parties that are seeking a redress?
Well, it's important when you have substantial evidence. Court is not a Father Christmas. It is what we present to the court that they are judged. Like this woman, Justice Mistura Bolaji said, there's no cogent or credible evidence before the court to defend whatever allegation. Somebody said we won election in particular. There was no particular polling booth where you have defended the winning of that election. It was just emotional. People are just being emotional, and you're approaching the court without substantial evidence. Court does not follow you to the field. If you have gone to the field and you realize there was a lot of discrepancies, irregularities, and all that, defend it. Have a cogent defense and present it to the court. And unfortunately, for this year's petition, there's nothing like that.